Ladies and gentlemen, it's Joshua Reviews, and let me present to you the greatest concept of a horror movie you could ever wish. First and foremost, you have a group of teenagers. Okay, not that great. It's Halloween time, which has been done before. Okay. You have an eerie setting at like an amusement park or a haunted house attraction. Okay, maybe it's not the greatest idea. You know, it's been done before. We got movies like Haunt from 2019, House of Fears, which I will review eventually at some point whenever I feel like it. Movies like Hellfest, which pay homage to like the old 80s slashers. You got movies like Hell House LLC, which are really, really freaky films. At least the first two. The third one was... But then you have movies like Bloodfest. A film that caught my eye, and only and solely because Ned's in it. And you're like, okay, well, who's this Ned dude, you know? Who's Ned? Well, my dear fellows, his name is Jacob Batalon. Jacob. I love the fucking dude. He was in Spider-Man. He was in so many films beforehand, and now he's in this film. So what's the premise? Okay, it's a bunch of kids going to a Halloween horror movie themed theme park. Not a theme park, but more like just like an event, you know? Like, let's say Not Scary Farm or Halloween Horror Nights or something like that. Six Flags, when they have their annual Halloween attractions in there. But this time, there's a little twist. It plays on the horror subgenre cliches and the tropes of the rules, kind of like what Scream did. Like, there are rules you gotta follow to survive. In this case, it follows that formula, and in order to survive everything so-and-so, you gotta follow the rules and go through the different attractions to try and survive, the actors that try to grab you. Only difference in this film is that they're not actors. They are literally deranged psycho killers, zombies, vampires, and mind-controlling people that are being mind-controlled. Okay, sign me up. So, what are the pros? Okay, so the pros is, first of all, I like the cast. The cast was very, very likable. The acting is, for the most part, it's okay. It's not great, but, you know, I've seen worse, man. I've seen worse, all right? I've seen worse. The acting in this film is pretty good, especially from Jacob, a.k.a. Ned, CEO of Sex. He does a great job in the film, and I think all the characters, with what they were given, did a great job. I thought the comedy, for the most part, was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't laugh out loud, but I got a few laughs here and there. And overall, it delivered in what it was advertising. A ginormous theme park with killer monsters, whatever, going rampant, going wild. And it's just like, whoa, this is cool. That's some nice blood effects. That's a cool set. That's a cool idea. And for the most part, it's all well executed. The film overall is really fun. But where the film falls flat for me, that's a terrible word. I am so sorry. Where the film kind of fails for me is... Where the film kind of fails is there's a lot going on. Okay, that's great. How do we explain it all? Well, it's kind of weird. It's very weird. So, if you look at the reviews on this movie, they're very mixed. It's like 50% of the critics and like 49% of the audience or something like that. So something so on. So it's very split down the middle. It's very average. IMDb, I think, gave it like a 5.5 out of 10. So there are people who like this film, but I think the majority just find it meh. And I unfortunately have to kind of agree. I don't think it's as bad as some people would say. I did enjoy it, and I don't think it's a bad film. I just think towards the end it gets a little convoluted. And I'm going to spoil a little bit, not too much, but I'm going to spoil a little bit. Like, there are these zombies, right? Okay. So how are we going to explain the zombies? What is this movie setting up for the zombies? What is it? What created the zombies? Well, it's explained that this mad scientist horror fan wants to make the best horror film he can. Okay, that's not original. We've seen people like that before. Movies like The Hills Run Red, where it's like you got to make the perfect horror film, all right? You got Scream, where the Ghostface killers are trying to make another stab film, so they kill some people, so a sequel can get made. So it's been done before, but here's where things get a little weird. It's like everything is recorded, and they're going to turn it into a movie. First of all, I don't understand why people think that works. It doesn't. Because it's like, what's the narrative of the movie? You know? I get it. You're like, oh, this is cool. I'm watching a movie. But it's like, what's the narrative? What's your story, dude? You got to have, like, something. It's kind of like Cabin in the Woods, where it's like, it's all like, whether or not the virgin survives, whether, like, that. It doesn't matter. As long as the horror gods are appeased, So it's like, what's the plan here? And not only that, but the way everything's explained, it's like the vampires. It's people with like fake fangs, I think, or something. Like it's something to do with a chemical or whatnot. The zombies are actual like dead people, but with like some sort of pulse wave is like going through them and it like resurrecting them. They're being mind controlled by gamers. Deranged psycho killers from asylums were actually brought in, and they had them watch horror movies and make them go psycho. There's a ginormous tower where it's like Bowser's castle, where they're planning all this stuff, and it's like, in like Jurassic World, when the nerdy tech guy is like working on like behind us, and he's like, oh man, I'm a huge fan. It's like they got all that set up, and it's like a high-tech security tower. And I'm not going to lie, it's really silly and kind of dumb, even for this type of movie. I kind of like thought to myself, like, oh, I'm enjoying this film. And then it gets to this part, and I'm like, ooh, what is going on? This is a little convoluted. And don't get me wrong. What is my dad watching? I swear. But it's like, you're watching and you're like, okay, wait. What? Like, don't get me wrong. The payoff is all right. It's all right. Everything's just all right about this film. There's nothing bad. There's nothing terrible. There's nothing that I despise. There's nothing that like, the film just kind of exists. There's a lot of, but here's the thing I like about the film. There's a lot of love and passion behind it, and I really appreciate it for it. I could tell this was made with a genuine passion, and it seemed like everyone who worked on it had a blast filming. But I think towards the end, it gets a little too convoluted, even for me, to the point where I was just like, okay, where is this going? And the payoff isn't really that, like, it's not a real payoff. It just kind of ends. And I even remember thinking to myself, I'm like, how is this going to end? Like, what? Like, there's a lot of exposition at the end, and it's a little, like, ham-fisted. And I remember thinking, like, what the... Let's just say this. The ending doesn't kill the film, but how everything is explained at the ending is you're like, okay, that's a little silly. If you had explained it at the beginning, I would have been on board with it. But because you didn't, I'm a little dazed and confused. That's the best way I could say it. The film was made with heart and passion. It's an entertaining film. I wasn't bored while watching. I wanted to see where things would go. But I think where the film like kind of fails for me is it's got a very convoluted plot. But I don't know anyone who genuinely thinks this is a bad film. Everyone who rates this movie gives it like a 5 out of 10. So I'm going to give it a C+. That seems slap dab in the middle for me. I think I'm good to go. Go see it if you want to. It's It's fun. It's enjoyable. Not perfect. Not great. It's just okay. You might enjoy it. Oh, fine.